Michelle, Teresa, and John are EMTs with the Riverside City Fire Department. Michelle and her EMT partner, Eric Sanchez, responded to a vehicle accident. Michelle and Sanchez were the first responders on scene. Michelle was focused and busy assessing and treating an injured crash victim when she heard the squeal of tires skidding and then a loud crash of two cars smashing into each other. When she looked up, she saw that a car entering the freeway on-ramp had crashed into the vehicle with the other accident victim that Sanchez was treating. She jumped up and ran to check on Sanchez. He was pinned under the car. She called out to Sanchez and received no response. As she was trying to reach Sanchez, the Riverside Fire Department engine number 2 arrived. Teresa and John had been called to the scene at the same time, but they were further away. When they arrived, they saw Michelle and Sanchez's vehicle along with firefighters working with the jaws of life to extricate someone from the vehicle. Teresa and John grabbed their go bags and ran up to assist in treating the crash victims. Michelle frantically told them that the firefighters were trying to extricate Sanchez from under the car. This caught Teresa and John by surprise, as Teresa and Sanchez were in a long-term relationship and had been living together for over 5 years. John and Sanchez were best friends who went to high school together at Riverside Poly. They joined the department together and graduated from the EMT Academy together. The firefighters were able to extricate Sanchez and the original accident victim. However, despite their efforts, Sanchez's injuries were too severe and he succumbed to them. Sanchez died at the scene. The 3 other accident victims all had limited injuries and survived. 7 days after the fatal accident, the community came together for Sanchez's funeral. After Sanchez's death, the department was unable to provide extended leave to Teresa, Michelle, and John due to a shortage of EMTs. John declined to take any time off and actually took most of Teresa's shifts. He has been working as much overtime as he can. He was forced to take 1 day off by his supervisor, but that has been the only time he has taken off, and he has refused to take any more time off. Michelle took off 2 days and then was back to work with a new EMT partner who was transferred to the station. Teresa tried to work the next day after Sanchez's death and was given permission to leave work after a couple of hours after she was unable to control her emotions. Teresa has not returned to work. Mike is a trained crisis interventionist who works for an agency that contracts with municipal and public agencies to help address the needs of employees who have experienced traumatic incidents. Mike is informed he is meeting with Michelle, John, and Teresa together, who are waiting for him in an adjacent room down the hall. Michelle is struggling with internal survivor's guilt as she can't let go of her decision at the accident scene to work on the other accident victim. Internally, she is racked with guilt and replays multiple scenarios in her head that allows her to save Sanchez, including her taking his place and dying instead. At home, Michelle has been withdrawn from her husband and 2 teenage sons, and has been very agitated and angry with everyone at home and at work. John has presented as stoic and in control as he tries to take as much of the burden off of Teresa as he can by taking her shifts at work and checking on her in person or by phone each day. Internally, John is full of rage, and at home, when his girlfriend is not home, he has gone out several times to the garage and smashed and broken stuff with a bat. Unknown to anyone, he has driven and parked outside of the home of the 3rd accident victim who crashed into and killed Sanchez. John has not done anything, but internally he is conflicted and outraged about who should pay for killing Sanchez. Teresa has been devastated by Sanchez's death and was focused on planning Sanchez's funeral service. Now that the funeral has passed, she finds herself unable to sleep and has been drinking 4 to 5 glasses of whiskey to help her sleep each night. Teresa does not leave their home.
Okay, hello, my name is Mike DeWitt, and I'm a crisis intervention specialist that has been called in to meet with you today. And I've been given some information about why I'm here, but I'd like to spend some time hearing from you about you and about your experience. So first of all, I'm very honored to be able to work with you and to meet with you today. You guys do a tremendous service through your work for the community. I know you have one of the hardest jobs that there are out there and the highest stress levels. So if I can be of any help to you today, I really look forward to being able to serve you in that way. So first of all, let's maybe start with some introductions. I've already introduced myself. Maybe tell me your name, how long you've been an EMT, and maybe if you feel comfortable enough, why you chose to be an EMT. So who wants to start?
I'll go. My name's Teresa. I've been an EMT for just about 8 years, and my family's in the police, fire department, EMTs. It's just what we do.
So it's a tradition for you?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm John, and been an EMT for 7 years, and I guess I just always liked helping people and the fast-paced nature of the job. You know, something different every day, and it's just a great way to kind of get a paycheck because you're doing something you love.
Great.
I'm Michelle, and I've been with the department for 5 years, and I chose this because first responders saved my dad's life, and I wanted to do that.
Great. So you wanted to pay back?
Yeah, pay it forward.
Pay it forward. Very good. How well do you know each other?
Well, you don't sit in a truck every day for 8 hours without getting to know the people you work with, so I know that I practically lived over at her house with Sanchez and her shacking up, as her parents said, and Michelle came along and she kind of fit in, and we hazed her for a little while. She got over the picking up the lunch tabs, and she kind of fit in. So it's going on 8, 9 years with her, and you've been around for 5 or 6, but it feels like forever. So.
And so you know each other pretty well?
Yeah.
Feel able to share with each other?
Sure.
Okay.
As long as we don't have to take a shower together, we're good.
Okay, that's good. I promise no showers.
Okay.
So one of the things I need to talk with you about before we go forward is informed consent. Are you familiar with that term?
Just at the doctors and the dentist, before I get anything done, they make me sign something.
Right. So I want to make sure that you guys understand why we're here, what we're going to be doing, and what to expect from our meeting today. And I want you to know that your participation, as far as I'm concerned, is completely voluntary. And so if there's something, I ask you a question you don't want to answer, you don't have to answer. Is that clear? So first of all, we're going to have 2 parts of our meetings today. And the first part is this group meeting, and it's going to last about 30 minutes. In fact, keep an eye on my watch, and after 30 minutes, whatever we cover, we can always put it off to another day if we need to. And then after that, I'm going to meet with each of you on an individual basis. So I want to get a feel for the strengths, the resources you have as a group, how you view things as a group, and then use that information to help me assess you on an individual basis to see what we can do to help you. Does that sound like a plan?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. We're going to discuss things related to last week's incident. That's one of the more serious incidents I've ever known, and I know that that's going to be uncomfortable for you at times and may trigger a stress reaction for you. So if we need to stop and take a break, we can do that. Just let me know. Okay? All right. Now, everything that we talk about will stay in this room. In fact, I'm going to ask that you not share what's shared in here except with each other. So don't tattle on each other outside of this room, but protect the information that's in here. Nothing that you say here is going to be used in any form of evaluation for you. This meeting is for your benefit and your benefit alone. Now, there are some limits to confidentiality. Most of the things you tell me, I'll keep to myself and won't go beyond these walls. One exception is if you tell me something that makes me think maybe you might hurt yourself or hurt somebody else, I've got to report that in most cases. Also, if you tell me about anything that makes me think there's a child being abused outside of this setting, or a dependent adult is being abused, then I must report. I'm a mandated reporter in those cases. Everything else, though, is between you and me. Any questions on that? All right. Well, again, like I said, I've gotten a briefing from your supervisor, but there's not a whole lot of details there, and I want to get a picture really from you guys about what happened. So whether it's one of you or each of you pitches in, if you could just tell me a little bit about what happened.
Well, me and Sanchez got a call and we went out to this accident and, we both got out of the car after we got there and I told him to go help the other person. Next thing I know, I'm over here in this car helping somebody and this other car comes, hits him and impacts that car and then I go to help him and he's pinned.
So Sanchez was your partner?
Yeah, he's been my partner the whole 5 years I've been on the force.
So that must have been a real shock for you. Do you remember any of the details around that?
It all happened so fast.
Anybody else?
Well, we got the call and knew that they had responded. We were just coming for follow-up backup, and we pulled around onto the on-ramp and saw the scene with the engine and just thought it was a typical scene that we were responding to like we do every day and all day. And then we get out and Michelle came up to us and let us know that Sanchez was pinned under the car and that, you know, he was working on a victim and somebody came around the corner and just slammed into him. And, you know, the engine company, they got the car off him and then we started working on him and he was gone. Just horrible.
So on top of your normal stress of responding to a scene, then you've got to try to do that while you watch a very dear friend and colleague lose his life.
Yeah, I mean, it's just mind-blowing to see someone you care about right there, and I don't know how many times it was just surreal. I don't know how many times I looked up working on a victim and Sanchez is there doing his thing and we're trying to help him, and this was totally flipped and reversed. He was the one we're working on, and it was crazy.
So yeah, you guys have been through just a tremendous trauma, and you already face it every day. In fact, when people go through a crisis event like this, there are some common reactions, and so maybe this has happened to you. I'll just throw this out here so you guys can think about it a little bit, and maybe we'll have a chance to share some of those. Oftentimes people respond, they experience extreme anxiety for a period of time afterwards, despair or hopelessness. Some people feel guilt. Some experience terror, grief, disorientation. Sometimes our sleep is disturbed. And above all, maybe confusion and anger. Does that sound like some of the things that you guys have experienced?
Sure, like in one big smorgasbord, you name them.
Okay, so that's normal, that's common for people who experience something like what you guys have experienced. On top of that, you guys as first responders, you're at a greater risk for developing certain stress reactions, higher than people from the normal population. So you guys, in many ways, you're superhuman. You rush to the scene of accidents where other people are trying to run away. You put yourselves in danger and at great risk to yourselves, and you cope fairly well with it. But as superhuman as you might be, you're still human. So what that means is there's always a limit. There's always a time when you can be overwhelmed when the crisis gets too big. Okay? So that's kind of why we're here today. So some of the risks that you guys have anyway, even without losing Sanchez. One is a risk for acute stress disorder, or PTSD, if it lasts long enough. Survivor's guilt. You're at a higher risk for substance use disorder, for major depression, and for suicide. So this is part of the reason why we're here today. You already have those risks, but add something big like this, and we want to make sure that we're taking care of you. Okay. So let me ask you this. You guys are pretty tight-knit, and you guys work together. What is the value of collaboration between first responders?
Well, if you don't work in a team, you're not getting anything done. Like you said, there's no superheroes. We're just people working together trying to do the right thing. And you gotta rely on your partner and your team members to help you out because, you know, that's the problem. Michelle and Sanchez arrived and they gotta go and help the two different victims. Can't do everything alone, so you gotta kind of work and trust each other.
Okay. So I'd like you to remember that works in sessions like this as well. So not only when you're on the job, but the aftermath. You guys can be a great resource for each other. And we're gonna collaborate together today and in the coming weeks to try to help deal with some of the problems that this crisis has introduced into your lives, okay? So when we meet individually, I'm gonna ask you to identify personal goals for yourself. I'm gonna hold off on that until I meet with you on an individual basis. One thing I wanna bring to your attention as I talk about the goal for this group portion is your experience of what's often called disequilibrium. And it's when you're hit with such a big event that it kind of overwhelms your normal ability to cope with things. And so you feel like you're off balance. And oftentimes the way we react to that is in ways that can be either beneficial or harmful to us. And we're trying to gain our balance, basically. And so we're trying things out that we haven't done before because those don't seem able to help us at this point. So the goal in crisis intervention is to reinforce the coping methods that have worked for you in the past, to try to restore and reestablish those coping mechanisms to a level that allows you to return to the level of functioning you had before the crisis hit you, and to possibly build new coping strategies so that you can actually grow from the experience instead of just react to it. Okay. Are there any questions on that so far? Okay. All right, so some ground rules I think will help us accomplish that, and you guys can think if you want to add any. This is your meeting as much as it is mine. And so I think first of all, being able to listen to one another and really hear what we're saying and where we're coming from. I think that's important. Doing so without judging each other. Remember, a lot of our responses to a crisis will often involve unknown territory for us. So we're going to be responding in ways that we normally wouldn't. But we want to make sure that we come at this without adding to each other's burdens. And finally, honesty. I'd rather have you just tell me, I don't really want to answer that question, than to lie to me or tell me what you think I want to hear. Okay, so if you don't feel comfortable sharing something in the group, that's why we're going to meet on an individual basis. You can save it for that time. Okay. Anybody have any other rules that they think might help us proceed?
The only rule we would have at Sanchez's here is no farting.
Okay.
That guy, that's why we called him Dirty Sanchez.
Okay. Well, I'm glad you can. Humor is actually a good coping mechanism.
Yeah.
And I think it's good to be able to express some humor even when you're dealing with something as serious as what we're dealing with. And yes, I will try to control my gas as we go, and I hope you will all do the same.
One of my coping mechanisms is praying. Whenever we get a call and we're on our way out, I always pray that we can get there and help the people that are the victims of the accident, incident, whatever it is. And now I feel like, what am I praying for sometimes?
Yeah, one of the common responses to crisis is sometimes we can question our faith. Things that spirituality can be a real strength for us, but it can also cause us to question reality. So what I'd like to do is to help identify the strengths that you guys have as a group and as individuals. Again, some of that will happen in our individual meeting, but you've mentioned prayer. Do you belong to a church?
Yeah, I haven't been going to church like I used to because when I switched my shifts on the weekends, I don't get to go as often, and some of the other weekends I need to spend time with my family. I have 2 kids and a husband.
Okay, so you have family. Is your family pretty supportive?
They are. I mean, you know, debriefing with, everybody at the end of our shifts or after, you know, in between incidences is always something that helps us to gather ourselves and, you know, be prepared for the next call.
Mhm.
And now I have this new guy that I'm working with, who I don't even know, who I'm pretty much training, not just training like on the job, but having to train like our area. And, you know, when you work in a new area, you have to get used to that whole area. It's like, just like working in anywhere, you have to be trained. And so now I'm so focused on training this person, and just, you know, at times I'm really frustrated because I didn't have to tell Sanchez anything.
Mhm. So you're having to break in a new partner in addition to trying to keep fulfilling your duties at work, and you haven't had a lot of time to just take a step back. Is that right?
Yeah, so debriefing is something I really don't find myself wanting to do after I'm all frustrated with the shift.
Okay. Can you think of another way that you might be able to debrief? No? Anybody else have an idea that she may be able to?
Nah, just, you know, you gotta talk to your husband, Jerry.
I don't even wanna talk to him right now. Sometimes it's hard for me to talk to him.
Yeah.
I'm mad at home, I'm mad at work. The other day I was so mad I just left.
Yeah, you just gotta keep it away from your kids and talk to Jerry, I guess.
So you have anger. Why don't you want to share anything with your husband? What's the reason for that?
Well, before things would happen at work and I would go home and, you know, then a day or two would just pass. But now I feel like this isn't gonna pass.
Okay, so it's hanging in there. What's the response been of your family?
They know it's been devastating, so they kind of just been trying to talk to me, but give me my space.
Okay. And what do you think will happen if this continues?
It can't continue.
Can't continue. Okay. So we'll try to come up with a way for you to be able to debrief. Could you guys help her with that in some way?
Yeah, I mean, we're all here for each other. I know that they got my backs. It's just, you know, it's tough.
I'm more worried about Teresa.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we'll be able to talk a little bit more about the stressors that we have, and we want to also identify the stress. So, under normal circumstances, your family is a real strength for you, right?
Yeah.
But now you're having trouble connecting with them because you're angry and you just
Well,
can't.
I feel like I could have done something different. Maybe I should have taken that victim and he could have taken the other one. Maybe
You know
we
you
should have set
couldn't
up
have.
flares.
No way. Sanchez will be telling you, forget it. You did the right thing. You do it at every scene. You triage victims, you switch, you go, and I don't think you can do that. You can't blame yourself. Sanchez would have taken anything for any of us, but
Well, what if I would have
He
went to
would-
the car? Maybe nobody would have got
So
killed.
then you wouldn't have, be there
Yeah.
for your kids.
we could all say that 1,000 times at every accident scene, but Sanchez would never want you to think that. There's no way. That's typical protocol. You got there, you went to the furthest victim because you were out of the truck first, and he took the closest. There's nothing, what can you do about that?
Yeah, so what you're experiencing happens a lot with first responders. Part of it is you guys take you have such a great sense of responsibility for the community and for the safety of others, that when you lose somebody, even if you did everything you could, you still get the feelings of guilt. And so part of working through those feelings and making it stop is doing what we're doing here and finding ways that you can process that. Okay? So she's got her family as a strength. Are there any other strengths? It sounds like your coworkers are a strength for you.
Yeah.
Okay. And John, what about you? Who do you trust? Who can you turn to for support?
Well, I talk to these two about work, and I try to leave work at home alone, you know, but my girlfriend Kim, she's been really good, but you know, I don't try to put too much on her plate. There's not a whole lot you can do. Sanchez is gone. You know, we had tickets to USC football, we had tickets to the Kings, and we would go and do stuff. Right now, I'm just not, you know, I can't go anywhere because everywhere I go reminds me of Sanchez. So, you know, I don't watch movies, that guy loved movies, you know, he loved Austin Powers, that's why he called me fat bastard, you know, and his favorite movie was Old School, and I don't know how many times I would come out of the station and try to go into my locker, and he'd come running out of the shower naked saying, "We're going streaking!" And I'm just like, you know, everywhere I turn around, there's memories, and so you just try to find yourself a hole that there's no memories that can kind of remind you of what you lost, because he's my best friend.
He
So,
sounds like quite a character.
yeah, he was the best.
And so, so your main support is your girlfriend, but you don't feel like you can share with her really?
Oh, I can share anything with her. I just,
You just
this
don't
is
want-
work, and she knows that Sanchez is gone, and she's there, and she, supports me. But I don't.
Do you have
need
any
to put
other?
more.
Do you have any other supports?
Yeah, I
out
talk to
there?
them.
To
It's the
them, so-
job. We're in the. I know lately, Teresa's been taking some time off, and I want her to take as much time as she needs. But when you're in the cab and you're doing the job, you just that's where you're able to just kind of trust and talk about things.
Teresa, what about you? Do you have any supports?
As of late, John has been probably the biggest support I've had. He's been taking my shifts and stuff, but all my family is pretty much Becky's, so it was just me and Eric.
Do you have any other friends that are besides these two?
You're looking at it, we did
Okay.
everything together, so.
Okay, so one of the things that I've noticed that all of you have mentioned that what you have in common is each other, that you're a supporter. And that's not a small thing because you all can understand what each other goes through each day, right? So one possibility that we can look into is maybe having you guys form a mini support group for each other. Is that something you guys would be willing to consider?
Sure.
Help you with
We're
debriefing?
we're already doing it. So
Okay.
yeah.
So that sounds like a very natural fit.
I have my family. My family's big. I'm Mexican. We have all kinds of family. But you know what? They don't understand like these people do. So, even if we had other people,
Right.
they won't understand.
Okay, so it sounds like though we do have a pretty significant resource just with you guys that could be very helpful.
Yeah, well, I would want to bring other people into it.
Right.
They wouldn't understand. They don't know what it's like showing up to a crash scene
Okay.
and seeing your buddy there. They just don't get it. They don't know.
Okay, so John mentioned some stressors that he has reminders everywhere. What are some of the other stressors that are you guys are experiencing now that are either reminders or make it difficult for you to go to work or to just cope with what's happened?
What do you mean?
Okay. So for example, do you have any sleep problems?
I haven't slept in 2 days.
Okay, so that's a stressor, right? If you don't get sleep, what happens to you? You can't function properly. So do you have a specific reason why you can't sleep?
He's gone.
So you
Well,
think-
you gotta, you might want to say why you're not, or how you're getting to sleep these days. I mean, you gotta at least talk about that, because I told you that can't keep going on. So,
It's just a couple drinks, John.
Well.
It helps me sleep.
well, tell them how many.
Like 4 or 5
4 or 5 what?
glasses of whiskey.
Ooh.
That's what I said.
I'm not normally a drinker, but that sounds like a lot to me.
Yeah.
No.
That you never drank like that before.
No.
I mean, even when we partied at the river, she's like a 2 margarita girl, and she's hitting back 5 whiskeys a night. That's not okay. I'm worried.
Is that the only way you're able to sleep?
Yeah.
Okay. So, are there just immediate thoughts? Are you just remembering him? Is that what's causing
we
it?
live together everywhere I turn. Like, it's not just a movie. It's not a game. It's everyday life.
Right. And when you are able to fall asleep, are you able to sleep through the night, or are you
No.
experiencing any nightmares, or are you just wakefulness?
I just wake up.
You just wake up. Any other stressors?
Well, I haven't been eating like I used to. And
That's a good thing. though.
yeah.
I'm just kidding.
Jerk.
But I'm nursing and I have to eat, and so everybody's concerned at home that I'm not getting enough
You've
food.
lost your appetite.
Yeah, who doesn't lose I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know if I would have believed this at 20 years old, but I'm not even interested in sex. I don't care about anything. I don't wanna do anything. I just, I wanna work. It's the only way to forget about
Would a
what's going on.
stressor be like following somebody home?
Oh,
Yes.
man. I told you that. It's not a big deal, okay? I got the accident victim that drove the car that killed Sanchez. I got their address from the vehicle report from the highway patrol, and
He wants to hurt him.
no, I went there and I parked my car and I just looked at his house, and that's it. I told you that because I thought you'd understand, and I never got out of the car. Okay, so that's it. I parked my car, and you know what? I don't know how many thousands and hundreds of people in accidents that Sanchez helped save people from, and one accident causes him to lose his life. Sometimes you just feel like maybe somebody should have to pay, that it's not just an accident, that you just don't get to walk away and say, no big deal.
You've been so angry.
Well, somebody ran over my best friend and he was gonna marry you.
He wouldn't want that.
Yeah, well, I didn't do anything, and, I was about to do the old crap in a bag and light it on fire, ring the doorbell and run away, but I thought they'd have DNA evidence.
Okay. So what stopped you? You might get caught.
It's not worth it. I mean, come on, we're all angry, we're all hurt, and we would do anything to get Sanchez back, but he'd be the first one to tell us that's not the right thing to do. He'd tell you to stop drinking, he'd tell me to just let it go, he'd tell you you could eat anything you want, get a burrito number 5 like you guys used to get, and he'd be the first one to tell us that it was no one's fault, but it doesn't bring him back, and that's what we'd all want.
So how many times have you been outside this person's house?
Just once.
Just once? And when was that?
Was about a week
A
ago.
week ago.
Wasn't it right after the funeral?
Yeah, but I mean, it was one time,
Have you ever had a desire to go back there?
you think about it, you think about a lot of things, but you get back to that moment where it's not gonna bring them back, and that's really all that matters, and you can't do that. If you could do something to bring them back, we'd all do it.
So even though you kind of are angry and you're sort of blaming this person, did you have any specific ways of hurting them in mind besides the dog poop in the bag?
No, I mean, you get there, you're angry, you think you're gonna do something, and then you start realizing this is crazy, you can't, and that's why I told her, is because I thought she'd understand that I'm not gonna do anything.
I'm glad you told her, because that's the kind of thing, it's helpful to have people who can kind of talk us down from those things. So do you think that this is going to be a problem moving forward?
No, I don't wanna do anything, and I'm pretty clear, and I think we all are, that person hurting them is not gonna do anything to bring Sanchez back. It's a way to lose a job, and it's not the right thing to do.
And it wasn't his fault.
Yeah, I know, but you're sitting there and you're angry and you're trying to figure out, all Sanchez did was help people who were in accidents, and then he dies in an accident, and you're mad at that person, because, that's why they call it an accident, because no one intended to do anything, but you're still mad.
So it sounds like you've already been able to sort of redirect some of that anger and some of the thinking process.
Yeah, I've been going out into the garage and taking my hockey stick and just breaking everything in sight, and that's been kind of working. Instead of breaking that guy's face, I'm breaking up most of the stuff in my garage. I just gotta clean it up before my girlfriend finds
Is
out.
that something you've been doing on a daily basis? How often has that been happening?
When I'm not working, I've kind of, something will trigger it, and I'll go out there, I'll see a scene from a movie or a commercial, or, just checking the sports.
Mhm.
Sanchez was a big USC football fan. We go to games and have a great time and tailgate, and then, you're just like trying to keep the world away, but it still leaks in and you get mad.
Okay. So what I'd like to do when we meet individually, we'll talk a little bit more about this, and I want to put some safety measures in place with you, just to make sure, in case you have a bad day or something, or that anger gets the better of you, that we have ways in place to
Yeah,
keep, you
yeah,
say-
safety measures, you telling me nothing, don't tell me what to do, I can handle it, okay?
Okay. What do you guys think? Is he handling it?
No. And you're gonna lose your girlfriend if you don't knock it off.
No,
Yes.
yeah, well. We'll see.
Okay.
John's always been a hothead. He usually comes to his senses, but you know, this is concerning because, you know, the whole parking in front of somebody's house, you know, usually he's.
You guys, I didn't do anything.
I know.
Okay. So John, you've expressed some pretty heated feelings right here, right now, right?
Well, yeah, it's, you know, we're talking about Sanchez and everything that happened, that's gonna, who wouldn't be mad?
Right. So it's understandable that you're angry. I think everybody here, including myself, we'd like to make sure that you can channel that anger into ways that are not gonna cost you,
Yeah.
okay? So that's something you'd be willing to at least look into?
Yeah, I mean, that's, I think that's right, I don't think, you know, I don't think Sanchez would want any of us to lose our job, I know he wouldn't. That's what brought us all together, so.
All right, and Teresa, are you pretty much drinking 4 to 5 glasses of whiskey a night?
If I wanna sleep.
If you want to sleep, okay. And has anybody here with the sadness you're dealing with, has anybody thought about any thoughts of maybe harming yourself?
Nah, not me, but I'm worried about Teresa, cause she's alone, she's drinking, and I'm covering her shifts, and so I'll be in the rig, and I'll think, uh-oh, you know, what's going on there, cause I can't blame her, I mean, she lost, you know, the best guy in the world.
I mean, would I prefer not to be here without him? Yeah. Am I gonna hurt myself? No.
Okay. Have those thoughts and feelings, have they become more frequent in the last week, or about the same, or less?
It's just the same.
Just a constant?
Yeah.
Okay. So you don't have any plans or anything? You haven't thought about
No.
ways that you might hurt yourself?
No.
Okay, that's good. What are some of the reasons that you have that would keep you from hurting yourself?
Well, when I don't believe in it, it kinda goes against everything I believe in.
Okay.
So, and then, I mean, we save lives, we don't take them.
Okay, good. So when we talk in individual session, we can maybe talk a little bit more about how maybe putting a plan in place in case those feelings do intensify or you start to have some of those thoughts, okay? And Michelle, have you had any thoughts?
No, I don't wanna kill myself. Like Teresa said, we save lives, and that's what we do. And it's all part of the job, and so, but, you know, do I wanna go to work without him? Do I wanna go to work with this new guy? No.
No, that guy's a jackass.
So you know, it's like, he set the bar high, you know, and I don't want it, he wouldn't want that, I have kids, he knew my kids, he was like an uncle to them, and like, that'd be devastating, you know, more so to everybody, like, why would I wanna do that, you know? And like John keeps saying, you know, he won't want that, they keep mentioning that, he won't want that, and you know, we lost a gem, he was one of a kind.
Okay. So just so I make sure that I understand, you guys have shared a lot, I really appreciate it. Teresa, you're mainly dealing maybe with some depression and sadness, deep sadness,
Yeah.
having trouble sleeping, and right now the way you're coping with that is to drink to help you, okay? And John, you're struggling with anger, although you have a sense of humor as well.
It might make you feel better.
I'm
Yeah,
not sure about that, okay? And so it sounds like a big issue for you right now is your anger.
yeah,
And the only way you're able to kind of deal with that in an effective way is to just work yourself ragged. What do you think's gonna happen over time with that?
you know, I don't know, I just kinda put my head down and try to do the job and try to get through this, that's all you can try to do, I'm just trying to help Teresa get through it and try to get us back to being a team, but it's gonna be tough without Sanchez, we're never gonna be the same team.
Right. Okay, and so
I don't know that I'm coming.
Hmm.
I know, you gotta take your time, but you're built for this and you're a great EMT, so we gotta get you back on your feet. It's just gonna take some time, and I think everybody understands that.
And Michelle, and for you, you also are dealing with some, it sounds like guilt, some anger, and having a little bit of difficulty relating with your family. Is that right?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, it's, before it would be like, okay, you know, this is just part of our job, somebody died on the job, and we've lost other people, you know, some other first responders while we're out on scene, but not the same.
All right, well, we just have a couple minutes left, so what I'd like to kind of close with, first of all, a big strength you all have going for you, a big support is each other. It sounds like you're all willing to help each other and pitch in, so that we can do a lot with that. And then I also want to spend some time talking with you about some self-care strategies that will help you not only to deal with this crisis, but help you in your profession as a whole. So it should be sort of, we have some strategies that may help fit just into your daily lifestyle that don't require huge changes for you and may help you adapt to this situation and then help you going forward. Does that sound like a plan for everybody? Okay, so what I'm gonna maybe plan is to meet with John first, and then Teresa, I'll meet with you. And again, we'll spend about 30 minutes each, and then Michelle will close with you. Okay. You guys have any other questions for me before we? Okay, thank you so much for meeting. I really appreciate it. Appreciate your time.
Michelle, John, and Teresa continued their group and individual therapy throughout the year following Sanchez's death. Mike DeWitt's experience in crisis counseling has led all three patients to process and cope with the tragedy they experienced and to move forward with their lives. Michelle's new EMT partner has completed his training thanks to Michelle, and the two of them have developed a good working partnership. At home, Michelle, her husband, and kids are getting along well and are currently looking forward to their first family vacation to Hawaii next month. John recently married his longtime girlfriend Kim, and the two of them are currently working on organizing their garage together. Teresa made the difficult decision to leave California to move back east to be closer to her parents, siblings, and nieces and nephews. She has surrounded herself with people who love her and recently began a new job as a social worker. It is fortunate that Michelle, John, and Teresa continued their therapy sessions. Had they chosen to end their therapy after the first session, their lives would have turned out quite different. Michelle would have continued her work as an EMT, but would end up taking her built-up anger out on her husband and children. These bursts of anger would have caused their marriage to end in divorce, and her husband would have gained custody of their children, allowing Michelle to only have supervised visits on holidays. John's anger would have continued to grow, and one day, after a smash session with his bat in the garage, he would have driven to the house of the driver who crashed into Sanchez to commit murder. This act of revenge would have resulted in John spending the rest of his life in prison. Meanwhile, Teresa's life would have continued in a downward spiral of drinking, drugs, and depression. Teresa would have shut out those who loved her from her life. Instead, she would have surrounded herself with cats and whiskey. Crisis intervention saves lives. Just ask Michelle, John, and Teresa.